Why is speaking so hard? Why I can understand English, but I can't speak? These are just a few of the many questions I often receive when meeting people who are learning English. In this video, we're going to dive deep into the answers and uncover what's really holding you back, and more importantly, how you can overcome it. Hello, English learners. Today, we'll talk about input-based learning and output-based learning. Plus, we'll explore how input-based versus output-based approaches can transform your language skills. By the time we uncover the root cause of why speaking English might feel challenging, you'll already be on your way to solving it. And guess what? It's easier than you think. By the end of this, you'll realize that speaking English is not a problem anymore. Speaking fluent English isn't some distant goal. It's something you can achieve sooner than you imagined. Sounds interesting, right? Are you ready? Let's get started. Why we struggle to speak English fluently. Many of us struggle to speak English fluently, even after years of studying it in school. Think about it. Most people around the world learn English for years, sometimes even a decade or more, but still can't talk confidently in public. Doesn't that seem strange? The truth is, there's a big problem at the heart of how we learn languages, especially English. The way most schools teach English focuses too much on input-based learning, which isn't very effective. You see, it's like watching basketball and understanding how the game of basketball works. But then, at the end of the day, you don't even know how to play basketball. There's a difference between watching a game of basketball and actually playing a game of basketball. Two different things. The experience on the field is completely different from you sitting on the bench watching people play basketball. So the same thing applies to English. Listening, reading, and hearing English is completely different from speaking it in general. So you need, remember, the input is listening, reading, and hearing it. The output is speaking it. You see what I'm saying? So you need to put more effort into speaking and writing than just listening or reading. 2. What is input-based learning? Many English learners spend hours listening to podcasts, watching movies, or studying vocabulary. These activities are examples of input-based learning, where you absorb information but rarely practice using it. The problem? Just listening or reading won't train your brain to recall words quickly or form sentences on the spot. To truly improve your speaking, you need to shift from passive input to active output. So, what exactly is input-based learning? It focuses on activities like listening, watching, or reading. In most language classes, students spend hours reading textbooks, listening to recordings, or watching videos. While these activities are important for building knowledge, they don't push you to use what you've learned. And without practice, fluency remains out of reach. For example, you might read a story and understand it. You might listen to a conversation and catch the meaning, but do you actually speak or write in English during class? Probably not enough. This is the problem. Input alone doesn't help you become fluent. To truly master a language, you need to practice output, speaking, and writing. 3. What is output-based learning? All right, let's talk about something that can truly transform the way you learn English, or any language for that matter. It's called output-based learning. So, what exactly is output-based learning? Well, instead of just passively reading or listening, which is what most of us are used to, output-based learning is all about using the language actively. You speak in English, even if you make mistakes. You write sentences, paragraphs, or even short essays. You share your ideas with others, like explaining something you've learned to a friend, or even to yourself. And here's the best part. Focusing on output doesn't just improve your English, it also has some incredible side benefits. Let me break it down for you. First, it activates your brain. When you speak or write, your brain has to process information in a much deeper way than when you're just passively listening or reading. It's like giving your mind a workout. Second, it improves your memory. Every time you use the language, you're creating strong connections in your brain. These connections make it easier to recall words, phrases, and grammar rules later on. Third, it builds confidence. I know speaking in a new language can feel scary at first, but the more you practice, the less nervous you'll feel. And guess what? Making mistakes is totally okay. They're actually an important part of the learning process. Finally, it makes learning fun. Let's face it, reading and listening can get boring after a while. But when you engage in output activities like teaching someone else, creating something, or sharing your thoughts online, you start to enjoy the process. It becomes exciting and rewarding. So whether you're writing a short paragraph, recording yourself speaking, or teaching a friend a new word, remember this: output is the key to unlocking your fluency. Are you ready to start shifting your focus and seeing real results? Shifting your approach might feel challenging at first, but the rewards are worth it. By actively engaging with the language through speaking, writing, or other forms of expression, you begin to internalize it in a way that passive learning simply can't match. Let's dive deeper into how you can apply output-based learning effectively to maximize your progress and achieve fluency faster. 4. How to apply output-based learning effectively. The magic happens when you focus on output because you're training your brain to use the language in real-life situations. Think about it. When you speak or write, you're not just absorbing information, you're putting it into action. And that's where real progress begins. Shion Kubosawa, a Japanese psychiatrist and writer, explains this idea perfectly in his book, The Power of Output. He explains that simply absorbing information, what we call input, isn't enough. To truly learn and retain knowledge, you need to transform that information into practical actions. In other words, you need to shift from input to output. In fact, he recommends a ratio of 30 to 70. 30% of your time should be spent on input like reading, listening. 70% of your time should be spent on output like speaking, writing, and sharing. Why does this work so well? Because when you produce output, you're forced to think deeply, organize your thoughts, and apply what you've learned. This process helps you remember better and use the language more naturally. Great! Let's dive into how you can actually start practicing output-based learning right away. The best part? It's simple, practical, and something you can begin today. First, write what you learn. After reading or listening to something in English, take a few minutes to write a short summary in your own words. This forces your brain to process the information and connect it in a way that makes sense to you. For example, you could write, "Today I learned that," or "This was interesting because." Today I learned that going to is used for future plans, but will is for quick decisions. Today I learned that you can say, "How's it going?" as a casual way to ask someone how they are. Today I learned that adding ed to a verb makes it past tense, like walked or talked. This was interesting because I didn't know that English has silent letters, like the K in knife. This was interesting because now I understand why we say a book but an apple. It's about the sound. This was interesting because I realized that body language is also important when speaking English. It doesn't have to be long or perfect. Just focus on expressing your thoughts. This small habit will help you retain what you've learned and build confidence in using the language. For instance, if you're writing, try jotting down a few sentences about your day or responding to a simple prompt like, "What did I do this morning?" If you're speaking, don't worry too much about making mistakes. Fluency comes with consistent practice. Over time, you'll find that organizing your thoughts in the new language becomes easier, and you'll start noticing patterns in how you use vocabulary and grammar. Next, teach someone else. Yes, even if you're still learning. Explaining a new word, phrase, or grammar rule to a friend, or even to yourself, can work wonders. Why? Because teaching forces you to simplify and clarify your understanding. If you can explain it to someone else, you truly know it. Plus, it helps you spot any gaps in your understanding so you can improve. For example, if you're trying to explain the difference between two similar words, you might realize you're not entirely sure about their nuances. That's great. It means you've identified an area where you need more practice, and now you can go back and refine your knowledge. Now, here's one of my favorite tips. Speak every day. I know it might feel strange at first, especially if you're shy or worried about making errors. But trust me, practice makes progress. Talk to yourself in English. Describe your day, share your thoughts, or even narrate what you're doing as if you were giving a live commentary. You could say something like, "I'm walking to the kitchen to make a cup of tea," or "Today was busy because I had 3 meetings." These small moments add up over time. If you're feeling brave, record a voice note. Listening back to yourself can help you notice areas to improve, like pronunciation, intonation, or sentence structure. It's also incredibly rewarding to hear how far you've come when you listen to older recordings later on. Remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's consistency. Even 5 minutes a day can make a huge difference in building your speaking skills. Another fun way to practice is by sharing online. Post your thoughts on social media, join online communities, or participate in language exchange platforms. Not only will you get to practice English, but you'll also connect with others who are learning or fluent in the language. Their feedback and encouragement can be a huge boost to your confidence. For example, you could write a short post about your favorite book or movie, or share your thoughts on a current event. If you're nervous about making mistakes, remember that most people online are supportive and understand that everyone is there to learn. You can also use platforms like Reddit, Discord, or language-specific forums where learners and native speakers interact. Engaging in conversations with others exposes you to different accents, vocabulary, and ways of expressing ideas, which helps broaden your understanding of the language. If you're not comfortable posting publicly, consider starting small by commenting on articles, videos, or blog posts in English. Even leaving a simple comment like, "Great article, I learned something new," is a step forward. Over time, you'll feel more confident sharing longer and more detailed thoughts. Additionally, participating in language exchange platforms such as Tandem or HelloTalk allows you to practice with native speakers while helping them learn your language in return. This mutual exchange creates a supportive environment where both parties benefit, and you'll often find yourself motivated by the progress you make together. Finally, don't forget the 30 to 70 rule we talked about earlier. Spend less time passively reading and listening, and more time actively speaking and writing. Balance is key. For every hour you spend on input, make sure you're dedicating even more time to output. To put this into perspective, if you spend 30 minutes reading an article or listening to a podcast, follow it up with at least an hour of active practice. This could mean summarizing what you read or heard in your own words, discussing it with someone, or writing a response to the content. The idea is to shift from being a consumer of the language to becoming a creator. Active engagement helps solidify what you've learned and trains your brain to retrieve information more naturally when you need it. Remember, fluency isn't just about knowing a lot of words. It's about using them effectively in real-life situations. One interesting way to balance between input and output is through a technique called shadowing. Shadowing means listening to a native speaker and then immediately repeating what they say, trying to copy their pronunciation, rhythm, and tone. It's like a mix of input, listening, and output, speaking, and it's a powerful way to improve your fluency. For example, you can use podcasts, YouTube videos, or audiobooks as your source material. Listen to a short segment, just a sentence or two, and then pause to repeat it aloud, mimicking the speaker as closely as possible. Pay attention not only to the words, but also to how they're said, the stress on certain syllables, the pauses, and the overall flow of speech. Over time, This practice will help you internalize natural speech patterns and improve your ability to sound more like a native speaker. Plus, it's a great way to build confidence in your speaking skills without needing another person to practice with. Another great method is paraphrasing. After reading or listening to something, try to explain it in your own words. This helps you process the information while practicing your speaking or writing skills at the same time. For instance, after finishing an article or watching a short video, challenge yourself to summarize the main points in a paragraph or out loud. You could even take it a step further by imagining you're explaining the content to someone else who hasn't read or seen it yet. This forces you to think critically about the material and adapt it into language that makes sense to you. Paraphrasing also encourages you to experiment with synonyms and different sentence structures, which enhances your vocabulary and strengthens your grasp of grammar. The more you practice this, the better you'll become at expressing complex ideas clearly and confidently. And don't underestimate the power of role-playing. Pretend you're in a restaurant, at a job interview, or introducing yourself to someone new. You can use real-life scenarios to practice both understanding input and responding output. For example, if you're preparing for a job interview, look up common questions online and record yourself answering them. Then listen back to identify areas for improvement, such as awkward phrasing or filler words like or If you're practicing casual conversations, imagine ordering food at a cafe or asking for directions in English. Write down key phrases beforehand if it helps, but focus on speaking spontaneously once you start. Role-playing allows you to simulate real-world situations in a low-pressure environment, so when the actual moment comes, you'll feel more prepared and less anxious. These small but effective activities will help you strike that perfect 30 to 70 balance, ensuring you're constantly moving from passive absorption to active application. By applying what you've learned to real-life situations, like describing your day, teaching someone, or sharing your thoughts online, you're not just learning English, you're living it. And that's where the real growth happens. So, are you excited to give these tips a try? Remember, every small step counts. Start today, and soon you'll see just how much progress you can make. Now, here's the thing. Learning a language isn't just about practicing. It's also about staying motivated and having fun along the way. After all, if you don't enjoy the process, it's easy to lose steam. That's why making your language journey enjoyable is absolutely key to long-term success. Let me share some ideas to keep things exciting and help you overcome fear and perfectionism so you can stay consistent and confident. 5. Making learning fun and staying motivated. To truly strengthen your speaking muscle, practice needs to be both purposeful and fun. One of the best ways to do this is by setting small, achievable goals. For example, challenge yourself to describe your day in 1 minute, or repeat a favorite phrase with correct intonation. These little wins will boost your confidence and keep you motivated. You can also mix things up with games, role plays, or storytelling. Imagine turning your next study session into a fun activity, like pretending you're hosting a podcast or narrating a story to a friend. Recording yourself while doing this not only helps you track your progress, but also reveals areas for improvement. And remember, mistakes aren't failures. They're stepping stones to mastery. Every time you stumble, you're actually moving closer to fluency. Another great way to stay engaged is by joining language clubs or finding a study buddy. Having someone to share your journey with adds accountability and makes learning more social. Plus, celebrating small wins together, like mastering a tricky phrase or completing a conversation, can make the whole process feel even more rewarding. Let's talk about something we all face: fear. It's normal to worry about making mistakes when speaking a new language. But here's the truth: embracing imperfection is key to progress. Instead of aiming for perfection, focus on taking action. Start with small, manageable goals and celebrate every attempt, no matter how imperfect. If anxiety creeps in, try practicing mindfulness. Take a deep breath and remind yourself that fluency grows through trial and error. Even native speakers stumble sometimes. By shifting your mindset from fear to curiosity, you open the door to genuine communication. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience? This simple shift can transform how you approach speaking. Monitoring your language learning progress helps maintain motivation and highlights areas needing improvement. Use journals, apps, or voice recordings to document milestones and reflect on challenges. When setbacks occur, like forgetting vocabulary or struggling with grammar, view them as valuable learning opportunities rather than failures. Adjust your strategies, revisit tough topics, and celebrate resilience. This mindset transforms obstacles into stepping stones toward fluency. Final thoughts. Learning a language is a journey filled with highs and lows, but every step forward counts. By tracking your progress and embracing setbacks as growth moments, you build resilience and deepen your skills. Remember, consistency beats perfection. Small, daily efforts lead to big results over time. Celebrate your achievements, no matter how small, and stay curious about the language and culture. With patience and persistence, fluency is within reach. Thanks for sticking with us through these powerful strategies to boost your language learning journey. Remember, the key to success lies in consistent effort and embracing habits that make learning enjoyable. If you found these tips helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more expert advice. Got your own favorite learning habit or a question? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from you. See you in the next video.